Utah, and Rakesh is also in India. And George, I did read your Wikipedia page. You went to Emory University, which and then you went on to Georgetown Law School, and then somehow stumbled into the Senate and became a part of the Tower of Power for quite some time. I guess you got Potomac fever when you were at Georgetown. Not really sure about that. And now you're the CEO of Guntser. It used to be Guntser, Yoakley, Chrysler, and Stewart. I remember that years ago. Is it still it, or is it? Well, I remember.
Good memory. Yeah, Marshall Chrysler went on to be the president of the University of Florida. So then we went to Guntser, Yoakley, and Stewart, and now like a lot of firms, we're just going by the one for the brand name. So it's just Guntser now.
Oh, it's just Guntser now. Yeah, and the thing is, well, I actually used to live in your area. I lived in Boca, where they don't drink coffee; they drink mocha. So I actually lived there for about 5 years, and practiced law for about 5 years down in. We actually had office in Palm Beach, Boca, Naples, and Fort Myers, doing the thing called estate planning, which is really big in the great state of Florida. But since you're down in Florida, and the thing is, the coronavirus has hit there, and you're in the legal industry, I'm trying to think, how do you guys go to court or do trials or even frankly meet with people? What are you doing over there?
Well, it's a great question, and thanks for having me on. We have 200 lawyers across 12 offices in Florida, and we are all working virtually. I'm sort of the last person who's even coming into the office at all on a limited basis, just to check on things. But yeah, what can we do is we can still meet with our clients. We can still do these Zoom type conference calls, which we're doing. We're advising a lot of clients on the CARES Act and how they can apply for loans under the Payroll Protection Program, which is an amazing program that allows folks to get up to $10 million if they have 500 employees or less, and those loans can be forgivable if they spend it on payroll and rent and utilities and things like that. So we've been coaching up clients on how to make those applications, helping them walk through the Small Business Administration guidelines. So that's been a big part of our practice in the last couple of weeks. In terms of court, courts are closed through the end of April here in Florida by order of the Supreme Court. We are allowed to do Zoom hearings, which is something we're all getting used to, and those are starting up. But yeah, for the litigators, and I'm among them, there's less of that work to do. I expect there's going to be a ton of it after we get back to the new normal. But right for now, we're just trying to stay in touch with our clients. Those estate planning clients that you used to deal with, we've got a big estate planning practice, so a lot of our folks are touching their clients and making sure their wills and their trusts are up to date, and we're doing everything we can to help our clients go through this difficult time.
Yeah, well, how do you do the wills now? I mean, the thing is, to my recollection, I'm going back 37 years ago when I was practicing law. I mean, it's been a long time. How do you sign the wills? And I remember signing the wills in the presence of each other, in presence of a notary public. How do you do that?
Yeah, you still have to do it in person. There's not an exception for that. You still have to have witnesses. So if there are changes, we do it very carefully. We're visiting people at their homes, or we're having a place where they can go to, and we're staying as far apart as we can, and folks are wearing masks and gloves and doing all those things.
So I was thinking you go in with masks and gloves to sign your will.
Yeah, I mean, but we're adapting. We're adapting, and we're adopting, and that's what we have to do.
Mm-hmm. In New York, Cuomo just put an order that they can do like e-signatures, or they don't have to be in the presence of each other. I'm not sure how he was able to do it by an executive decision, but who knows? That's New York. I thought that was quite interesting. I think that happened like yesterday or something like that. But so in your offices at Guntser, nobody's there? Is that what you're saying?
No one's there. Yeah, all our offices are closed. We'll have someone come check the mail. I'm coming in briefly from time to time, but no, we're closed, and we have 200 people, 200 lawyers, and then a bunch of other professionals working remotely via laptop and iPad, iPhone, all those things.
Do you get any hearings at all with judges? What happens if you have an emergency order that you need, or an injunction? Do you get any hearings at all?
Yeah, we can. The judges are doing Zoom hearings. They're infrequent. It has to be pretty much an emergency. The judges are trying to get up to speed with other hearings. I've got a case here in Fort Lauderdale that's going to have a big 3-hour hearing by Zoom, so we'll work our way through that next week. Right. So yeah, it's very different, but this is what we have to do in these extraordinary times.
I'm concerned about that because sometimes I have legal things, and the backlog in the court system. How are they going to manage that? Because a lot of things rely on things getting done timely, right? So how is the backlog? I know Zoom hearings are going to help, but the backlog is going to be huge. Are they going to run 7 days a week to kind of compensate it?
No, I don't think that'll happen, but it's a great question. How will they get through the backlog? I think what's going to happen first is they're going to handle the criminal cases. So, there's speedy trial rights, and we haven't had any juries, right? So there's been no trials.
Right.
Who have been awaiting trial. The criminal cases are going to come first. So for those of us who are on the civil side handling business disputes, we're going to have to wait our turn. I wouldn't think that we're going to have any trials on the civil side until the fall.
Okay. Yeah, we were discussing on IBM TV is, okay, after this is all over, or let's say they flatten the curve, what is next? In other words, because I don't think the virus is going to go away. There's not going to be a vaccine. And we may mitigate, we may have certain treatments, but it's just not going to disappear. Commentators have said we're looking at 18 months. George, what's going to be the new normal on a jury trial? Are people going to have to be tested before you impanel a jury?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I don't know. It's definitely going to be a new normal. And are people going to show up for jury duty when these issues are out there? I think that's a real question. I think everything's going to change, right? The way we go to restaurants is going to change. The way we go to hotels are going to change. The way we try cases is going to change. It wouldn't surprise me if we weren't separating the jurors and spacing them apart. And, we can't do it by Zoom. We don't have those laws that allow for that
yet.
We still have to have in the jury box, but yeah, everything is going to change. And what I think is going to happen is I'm more optimistic than most. I think that here in Florida that April is going to be rough.
Right.
We look like, the new models say we're going to peak in our cases the third week of April. Mm-hmm. And after that, I think May is going to be better than April and June's going to be better than May. And we're going to work through this. And we've got one advantage in Florida, which I never thought was really an advantage, but we are very hot and very humid in the summer.
Yes.
And I think that's going to slow down.
Right.
Just sweat it out.
Right. Yeah. So, the influenza doesn't spread in the summer really here as much. And, it's already 90 degrees here in April.
Sweet.
So I think the next thing, I saw a study by the American Enterprise Institute where they said there'll be 3 phases. We're in phase 1 now, which is this hunkering down, sheltering in place, sheltering at home. Phase 2 is going to be, a warm up where you're going to get to go to a restaurant, but you're going to have to sit, a distance apart from other people. We're going to go back to work with, maybe half of a shift, working one, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the other half working on Tuesday, Thursdays. So that'll be the in-between. And then we'll go to a phase 3, which will be the new normal, whatever the new normal is, until such time as they've got a vaccine.
Yeah, the thing is that there was a study done by a couple of professors at MIT, published on SSRN, non-peer reviewed, that said 90% of the coronavirus cases were in warmer climates, giving an indication, but not, conclusive, that the warm weather will destroy or at least mitigate the virus, which means in July, August, we may actually see this start going down and under control. But remember, with a highly contagious, lethal virus without a vaccine, that means it just pops up back in the fall again. So that's the reason I'm looking at, okay, we get over this now, but what's going to be the next new normal going forward? Is there still going to be the social distancing you're going to have to do? You're going to have to wear gloves and mask. I did that for the first time going to Costco because I live in Raleigh, but I actually live much further south than Raleigh, and I have to go up to Raleigh. But just walking into a Costco where they have a lot of people, more so they do here, I'm going, all I have to do is, it's almost like all I have to do is touch one person that's infected and you get it. I mean, that's not really good. And then as you're older and you have pre-existing conditions, your mortality rate goes off the charts. I mean, that's not something that people look forward to. Now, with that in Florida, you have an older demographic.
We do.
Okay. So the thing is, and people from New York are moving down to Florida, but usually they move back up during this time. But I saw huge amounts of people taking trips down there to get away from the New York coronavirus. Is this going to infect Florida?
Well, it did. I mean, we know that one of the early patients was a lawyer in New York City who was down in Miami, who, came in contact with some of the folks. That's how part of the way it spread. Other people came in on cruise ships, flew in from Europe. That's how Florida got it. To your point, it's going to be around until there's a vaccine. I'm hopeful that vaccine is, January, not that not to a year from now. I think, the whole world is rushing to solve this problem. This is not, people will say, oh, it takes 12 to 18 months to get a vaccine. Well, the entire world is trying to solve this problem. The smartest people in the world are working on this. And there is tremendous profit motive also to be the first company that comes out. Think about, this is perhaps a $1 trillion, vaccine for those who can develop it. So I'm hopeful that good old, ingenuity and enterprise is going to develop this vaccine quicker. But you're right to the point that when we get into the fall and it starts to cool down again, especially in the Northeast and places like that, they're going to probably have more outbreaks. What is amazing to me is, like, for New York City, which has, New York has half of all of the virus confirmations in the country, is that they're still running the subway, to my understanding, which is shocking to me, that you would still cram people. I mean, I know there's supposedly social distancing, but there's just, that to me is a no-brainer to shut that down.
They did that in Hong Kong, that we learned that a lot of the countries, especially near China, they started shutting all of their public transportations down. I agree with you. What are they thinking? Because those are hard surfaces. That's where the contamination stays. We've been discussing this actually since February. Early February, I started hearing about this at a higher level, and that's why we decided to do this show, because everything that was happening in other countries started to impact us 2 weeks later. And I thought, you know what, we better start talking about this more on a global basis. And Nick was like the same way. He goes, wow, I had no idea that was going to impact us this way. But you've been in the Senate area. What impacts changes at this level? I mean, how do you move it a little faster?
Well, it looks like Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, tomorrow is going to bring the Senate back into session, even though there might only be 1 or 2 senators there, and ask for unanimous consent to add $250 billion to the payroll protection program. And I think he's going to get it. I mean, normally you can't do things by unanimous consent, but who's going to be the senator who stands up and objects?
No one.
It could be, Senator Schumer, if he's trying to exact some more out of it, but I would hope that doesn't happen. And then I think the House passes it. And, they've, for all that's wrong with Washington, and there's a bunch wrong with Washington, you have to give credit to Republicans and Democrats who have worked together over the past 3 weeks to pass extraordinary relief. I think much better and much faster than they did after the financial debacle of 2008 and 2009. So I'd say hats off to them. We'll have to figure out how we pay for all of this when this is all over with. It's a big issue, but they're working together, and getting these checks in the hands of small businesses so they can keep people on the payroll is the only thing that's going to keep us out of a depression, not a recession, a depression.
Right. Yeah. And how we're going to pay for it, we'll bring the Honorable David Walker in later on.
David, he's a good man.
Oh, David's been on our show several times. Yeah. He's been a great guy. He's actually moderated our show with the Federal Reserve Board in Chicago, so that was pretty cool. So he's a great guy. There's no question. But the thing is, I guess that is phase 4. Is okay. Now you're going to pay for it. But the thing is, this CARES Act that was passed, it was one of the first time I've seen like a lot of bottom up, but you have to apply for it. In other words, it's not like, hey, you're just going to get the financial relief. You're going to have to sit down and actually do some paperwork, right, George? I mean,
yeah, you do. Yeah. It's not a long application. It's 2 pages, but depending on the complexity of your business, if you're a sole proprietorship, small mom and pop company with 8 employees, something like that, it's a really easy application.
Right.
If you have 3, if a holding company with 3 subsidiaries, that's when it becomes a little more technical, and that's the kind of stuff at the Guntser Law Firm that we've been guiding our clients through when there are some more complexities to it. I mean, you have to attest when you sign it and fill it out that, you need this money because you would not be able to continue as a going concern. So, you have to get it right. There's going to be a lot of oversight and scrutiny of these dollars on the back end of this. So you have to make sure you get the application right. For your viewers, we've got a website, gunster.com/CARES-Act.
Hold on. Guntser, Gunster. Gunster.
/CARES, CARES -Act. And they can go to that website. That's a special page on our website, and it has all the information about the CARES Act. We've been doing webinars. They can replay the webinars. We answered probably 30 questions on the webinar from different business owners here in Florida about different parts of the CARES Act and what it meant for them. There's also other assistance programs besides the CARES Act. There's loan programs. Our state has 2 loan programs in and of itself, so I'm sure other states do too. So your viewers really, there's a lot out there to help them, and they should get the help they need.
Right, and the CARES Act is limited to people in the United States, because we have international people like in India and Nepal and Australia. They don't apply for the CARES Act here, but our U.S. viewers, they can apply for the CARES Act.
What about, this has been asked to me in the past 2 weeks more than once. What about the people who are here on a visa or here waiting for their citizenship and don't have their citizenship yet? How do they apply for any assistance at this time?
Yeah, the CARES Act is for American companies. There can be foreign nationals who work for the company, but it's really for American companies. So it has to be incorporated in the state of Florida, incorporated in the state of Delaware, whatever state it is, be an American business.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, it's American. Now we talked about the vaccine that's developed, and some company can make a lot of money off that. Is there any restrictions on the amount they can make? In other words, the pharmaceutical industry have some limits. Let's say this vaccine comes from Gilead Science and they remdesivir, and they actually now find a vaccine that works. And one of these international companies do. I think there are 41 right now that have promising vaccines going through clinical trials. Now, one of them works. Okay. What is the financial implications in the United States or perhaps even worldwide? Are they limited as to how much they can charge? Can they charge what they want? How is that whole thing going to play out?
That's a great question, Nick. I think that they'll be able to charge a sufficient amount, but if they are seen to be taking advantage of people and charging too much, I think there'll be an uproar about that. And you know that old expression, pigs can get fat, but hogs get slaughtered.
Right.
If you're too much of a hog on this, you risk yourself. In our country, being national, having have the president use the Defense Authorization Act and take your company over. So.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, that's what I wanted to know. I said there's got to be.
I wouldn't want to be. I think Johnson & Johnson is really moving forward, and they've already set up a production line to start producing the vaccine even before they have it approved, or even know that they know it works. So. I think that it will be available on a reasonable cost. I think insurance in our country will cover it.
Yeah. Yeah, because the other problem is once you develop it, you have to produce and distribute. And that's going to take quite some time, because if you're looking at billions of vials that have to get out, it's not going to happen overnight once you go through proof of concept. So some commentators were telling us 18 months before this vaccine is going to be ready. And they said that's a fast track. And I'm going like, that's a fast track.
Yeah,
okay,
I don't believe that. Yeah, I just think that's normal. I mean, that's a normal fast track under normal circumstances.
Yeah.
But a global pandemic and the whole world is trying to do this. And
but that means we're going to be dealing with this next year. See,
we will.
This is the problem.
And I think to your point, I think seniors would get the vaccine first.
Right.
Seniors and people with chronic medical conditions will get the vaccine first. Younger people will get it later. So I think that'll be that's what I would suggest as the protocol for the distribution.
Okay. What about having people COVID-19 certified? Just like if you travel on airplanes, you're TSA certified. Is it possible that we get, because when I had to meet with some person up in Raleigh, and they quizzed me on my background to make sure I wasn't COVID-19 I was COVID-19 compliant. They were from the government, so they want to make sure I'm assuming they were COVID-19 compliant. Is it quite possible that we get COVID-19 certified? Most of the people in my community, I believe, could be COVID-19 certified. Is it possible we get that someday, that people can get together as long as they're COVID-19 certified?
You know what, Nick, it's a great question. And whether we're all going to walk around with papers and show something on our iPhone, or to say that yes, we're fine, or we had it and now we've got a proof that we've had it and we're no longer able to have it or not contagious. Those are all great questions. And our employer is going to take everybody's temperature when they come back to work. When you go to a restaurant, are they going to take your temperature to see if you have a fever? This is a brave new world. That's going to be the new normal. And whoever figures that out, by the way, is going to do very well to figure out how to regulate that new normal.
Well, the thing is,
you're going to see a reduction in tourism, like what we were discussing, but also the big family theme parks and things like that. All of that's going to have to change in the future. And some of the things that we've been discussing is truly starting to rebuild your immune system, because that's going to be the only way you can really fight this virus if you have it, is a upgraded immune system. But how do you foresee things like that changing? Because that, we're talking about the workplace changing, but theme parks also provided a lot of employment for people during different seasons. So I mean, how is that going to impact us? Have you discussed this?
Well, I think it's going to impact it. And I think you're going to see hand sanitizer stations everywhere you go. I think you're going to see more people wearing masks and gloves. But this will not kill Mickey Mouse. People are going to continue to go to Disney World, I assure you. And there's going to be so much pent-up demand for us to be able to do the things that we used to do. People are really going to want to go back and do those things. So I think it'll be a new normal, but it will be a normal. We're not all going to social distance for the rest of our lives. People are still going to go to restaurants and cafes. People are still going to go to amusement parks. People are still going to go on vacation. We're as humans, we like those gregarious social interactions. And I think they will be different, but they will still happen.
Yeah, but even your law firm, let's imagine you go past the 14 or 20-day quarantine period for everybody. Everybody gets tested, and now everybody is basically free of the virus. What is wrong with them all going back to work once they're COVID-19 certified?
Yeah, I think they will. I think, again, it'll be that we'll have a middle time when we might have, half shifts and we kind of slowly get back to where we are, and we're careful about it. What's really interesting about this too, and we're all going to have to focus on, is how this is disproportionately impacting some communities. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, there was a lot of research on the COVID-19 and who has it, breaking it down to zip codes here in the United States. And unfortunately, it's impacting people of color and people in lower income neighborhoods disproportionately. So that's something we're going to have to get on top of too, is that why is this impacting those communities, and what are we going to do about that when this is over to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but aren't they more urban communities? Like if you're in it, like if you live closer to people, it's just like the reason New York got hit so hard is I actually was in New York during the time it hit China, and I was going to a Chinese restaurant. I told my wife, I'm not sure if we should do this, but then we left New York, and all of a sudden, bang, it hit. I was in Italy a couple months before it hit, and I'm going like, wait a minute. And in Italy, they live on top of each other just like they do in New York. You're living so close to people. Then I get to North Carolina where I live, and we're spread out. I mean, the houses are all far away, and I'm going like, okay, so we don't have much of an incident here, but in New York, you get hit pretty heavy because you can't. You can't avoid people. You bump into them when you're walking down the street. You bump them to the subways. You bump them to all the places that you go. And so what happens is if one person had it and you bumped into it, you'll bump into at least 100 people that day. Then you get it. And that's the problem with New York and all the urban centers that we have here. I'm not sure how we're going to solve that unless we do a slow rollout of COVID-19 certified people that are allowed to go out. But I have heard nothing about plant phase 2. Okay, I know about phase 1. Okay, where it's like, Senator George, what is phase 2?
Well, I think that you're hearing from the White House in our country that they're going to give you basically 3 levels of evaluation for the places that you live. They're going to call them high risk, medium risk, low risk. And the CDC will come out with guidelines for those 3 areas. And depending on which one you live, if you live in a high risk area, it's probably going to look like a lot like what we're doing now, which is quarantining. And if you live in a medium risk area, it might be you can go to a restaurant, but there only can be half as many people in the restaurant as there used to be. And you have to have a space between every table, and then if you're in a low risk place, it's going to be, the new normal, whatever that looks like, but it's going to be closer to the normal that we're used to. I think that's where we're headed. I think that's what June looks like in the United States, is as we come out of this and we peak, There's going to be areas that are going to get designated as medium risk and lighter risk, and then they'll start to change the policy. The places like Manhattan and New York or City are going to continue to be high risk for some time, and they're probably going to have to stay sheltered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's going to affect the restaurant industry, because I remember in New York, they eat differently there. You're sitting here, and right next to you, somebody's eating right next door. Okay, and you're trying to social distance New York City restaurants.
Yeah, it's going to be a different thing, because packing as many people in as you could to a restaurant was how you made money, right? Rents are expensive, so if you want to be able to make a revenue and make a profit, it was putting as many people in as you could.
Mm-hmm.
You bring up a good point there too, but also maybe that's where our highest vaccine should go to, is the highest concentrated places, as well as to the elderly people and people with compromised immune systems. But perhaps we need a vaccine in the heavily concentrated areas and the low income areas where it seems to have compromised.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a very good point.
Yeah, well, I think what we're looking at is treatments starting to come down first, because if you can test and treat, and you can mitigate the death rate, that probably will take place prior to the vaccine being developed. So the thing is, that may slow down. Plus the warm weather and the social distancing, all that will slow down or mitigate the viruses, the spread of the virus, but it doesn't completely eliminate it. And we're talking about packed in. Traveling a lot on airplanes, okay, they pack you in like sardines. How's the airline industry going to come back unless you get TSA and COVID-19 certified before you get on the plane?
No, you make a very good point, and I think that's what happened after 9/11. So we have to really, I think it's a great example of how we dealt with something that was just a shock to our system, which was 9/11. People didn't want to fly. People didn't want to travel. People were scared to be in crowded places. You'll remember when the first time you got on a plane after 9/11 and sort of the anxiety that brought, going to the airport, seeing soldiers carrying machine guns, and then the whole standing up of Homeland Security and TSA. And then we got back to normal. 4 months after 9/11, hotels were full again and airplanes were full again. So we're going to get back to a normal. It's going to be a new normal. There are going to be something different. Maybe to your point, you're going to have someone checking you before you get on the plane for your temperature, and these new tests now can test you in 5 minutes to determine whether or not you have the disease. And that might be where we are. That in this in between phase is that you're getting tested every place you go until there's a vaccine.
Yeah. So what we're going to see is the soldiers aren't going to be carrying guns anymore. They're going to be carrying hand sanitizers. Is that what?
Yeah, and COVID tests, right?
And COVID tests.
And you'll have to lean your head back so they can stick it up your nose.
I foresee the Star Wars uniforms with the big masks, and and they're walking around in their big suits now because they're afraid to get it too. Because we did learn that it's aerosol. And that, I think, was a turning point for me when I read a white paper on it back in February. And I was wondering, why isn't anyone sharing this information? Because all you kept hearing was, oh, don't worry, you can't catch it in the air. And I'm like, wait a minute, I just read a white paper on this. So it's highly contagious. We know that it's contagious before you even have symptoms. So even testing for fever, to me, is not enough. Like you said, we've got the test kits for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. But it only tests your immunities right now, right? So it doesn't test everything for COVID. You're not 100%. So, like you said, we are going to have to go to the new level. What are people doing different as far as financially preparing for things? Because this is kind of what your law firm does. Like, have the healthcare directives changed? Have people called in to do different things?
Well, I think financially, what we're advising our businesses is apply for the CARES Act or for emergency loans under the federal or state programs if you can. That's one way to get cash in the door. Two is draw down your credit lines to the extent that you can with your financial providers so that you've got cash. This is really about having enough cash to be able to make it through the trough here of the economy so that you can still be working and running when things return to the new normal. So That's really the best advice that we're giving people. And we're also talking to people about their leases with their landlords and what they can do to get some rent abatement. So again, they can save some cash. We're talking to people about, event cancellations and act of God clauses and contracts. If people had a contract for their whole business to go to a retreat in Hollywood, Florida and stay on the beach, and that was scheduled for May, well, we're going to be sheltering in place potentially during that. So that's a way to relieve yourself of those obligations under contract. So those are the kind of, different topics that we're dealing with our clients. And then, the challenge is going to be going forward. There are going to be companies that go bankrupt, and we're going to have to counsel those companies too on bankruptcy because not everyone's going to make it through this difficult time.
No, you're right about that. And the CARES Act is, something that we all need to learn to do. You can go learn more about it on the website that we have up here. And then Nick is having a stimulus course today. That brings me up to something I heard, a rumor. I don't know how true this is. Maybe you guys could tell me that the stimulus might come in a digital wallet. Did they ever confirm that, or that like they were going to give it to us in a digital wallet, like a Bitcoin? Is that still on the plate?
Yeah, I've not heard that. My understanding is that you're getting a check, and those checks are going to be in the mail.
Okay, good.
And then, most of us have the ability to take a picture of those checks and deposit them in our accounts now without having to go to our bank. Mm-hmm. Or you can bring them to an ATM if you don't have that, capability, and just deposit it into the ATM. So my understanding, the checks are being mailed out now. People are going to start getting these relief checks, and that's going to be a big help as well.
So how are they mailing them out? Did I have to apply for it? Or do they just send it to you because you have a Social Security number?
Social Security and what you paid in taxes, I think they're looking backwards on your taxes and see whether you qualify. If you make over $100,000 a year as an individual, you're not going to get the money. And if you're a married couple, it's like $150,000. If you have kids, that adds to it. So it's not going to go to everybody, but it's going to go to more than 90% of Americans.
Right, but that's part of it. But the thing is, when it comes to businesses, small businesses, sole proprietorships, independent contractors, they have to apply if they want to get more funds, through the PPP and
the PPP you have to apply for. This is just the check that the federal government's sending out to Americans. Right. The small business programs and the loans and the PPP program you have to apply for, and you have to apply for them through your bank.
Yes, I heard Wells Fargo yesterday closed down accepting.
What they did is they closed down for companies over 50 people. So they are trying to focus really on small businesses, to their credit, and also not-for-profits. Not-for-profits are also eligible under the Paycheck program.
Yeah.
Are there any programs for people who say, hey, I can start something up to help with the COVID-19? Are there grant programs for that? Because most of the programs are for companies that have already been around. Is there special ones that we can apply for?
Yeah, if you are, for example, a healthcare provider and you're working on a vaccine or something, a therapeutic drug, there are all sorts of grants from the National Institute of Health, separate and apart from the CARES Act.
Okay.
I heard a story about a immunologist who was working on something, and they basically said, send us a one-pager on it today, tell us how much you need, and she got the check the next day.
Wow.
So there's plenty of money out there for people who are trying to find a cure or try to find a therapeutic medicine that can help people get through this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome.
I heard there's an emergency provision that they distribute $10,000 or something like that within 3 days or something.
There are very quick relief programs under the CARES Act and under state programs. In Florida, we have one that our Governor DeSantis has been pushing, where you can get money very, very quickly.
Okay.
Folks who are struggling today to make ends meet.
So people should look to their states as well as the federal government, because
absolutely
states could have
go to their state website and look to see what programs there are. I mean, if I were in North Carolina, I would type in state of North Carolina loan program and Google it, and I'm sure I would find that you've got an emergency bridge loan program or an emergency disaster relief program. They're usually loans that are paid back over time, and the interest rates are usually very low. So because advantage of those programs.
Yeah, because the second effect of this will be the economy. In other words, I don't see how we're going to be able to get back to where we were very quickly, economically, everything that I've seen. In other words, so the thing is, not only do we get hit with the coronavirus, we're going to have an aftershock, which is going to be the economy. that is going to struggle, for quite some time, similar to what happened in 9/11.
I think that's right. I think it's a very similar to 9/11. It's going to take this year for us to get, I think, through before we can get back to a robust economy. I think you'll see a big recovery in the stock market in the fall. I mean, you're starting to see some of it already. But in terms of unemployment, we're having millions of people applying for unemployment across the country. There's predictions that we're going to, be 20% down in Q2 in terms of gross domestic product. Yeah. That's going to take a long time to get those people back to work. And if we remember anything from the last recession, is that we had a jobless recovery for a long time. People, once they let people go, they did not bring all those people back, right? So that's going to be a long-term impact. We were at such low unemployment. I mean, in Florida, we were under 3%.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time for that to recover. I think it'll take years.
Yeah, one of our friends at the Federal Reserve in Dallas was saying that they believe we're already at high double digits as we sit right now. It's just the data comes in late, we're always looking at historical data, and there's a possibility we hit 20, even maybe 30% unemployment. In other words, depression era unemployment, but hopefully for a very short period of time. Yeah. Because
the good news is that there are now jobs out there. I mean, if you got laid off from your restaurant or your hotel, you can go to a supermarket. We've got a great supermarket chain here, which you'll remember, Nick, Publix.
Of course. They have Publix in North Carolina now.
I know.
And it's the largest ESOP in the United States.
Yeah.
It's like
fantastic. One of the best places to work for.
Yeah, the Jenkins family did.
Yep. Love Publix. And Publix, Walmart, Home Depot, Ace Hardware. Yep. There's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs. Amazon for people right now, if they got laid off from a hospitality business job. So there are jobs out there, and that's going to be part of what you said. What's the new normal? Well, the new normal is going to be a lot more buying stuff from home, which we were already doing. We're not going to go back to as many, traditional stores and big box retailers as we were. We're going to buy more and more stuff online. And that's going to be part of the new economy, and there's going to be jobs in that new economy.
Well, Nick, he brings up a point there, because we've got the dollar store online that sponsors us now. And that's great, because I can shop the dollar store online as opposed to driving to the dollar store. But, you bring a good point there. I've been locked down for 4 to 6 weeks. I started listening to scientists all over the world. And I thought, this is going to be bad, but if I'm out and about, I might catch it. So I locked down 4 to 6 weeks ago. Nick and I took a vote for the company not to do any traveling. So we were canceling traveling way ahead of time. And I think it was just because we were listening to the other countries a lot more. Right. And, but I think, again, this is going to be the new normal. Nick and I just decided, wow, let's get Pod TV really rolling and get a world news. We were going to do this in April, but we pushed it and started doing it at the end of February. It has launched new businesses, like you said, and new opportunities. I've watched manufacturing facilities switch over now, and they're manufacturing masks that are the N95, and so people are switching, they're pivoting, and to meet the needs. I always like to ask this question: what has changed in your life? What are you doing a lot differently that you think you'll carry with you after this?
Well, I'm exercising more, so that's a good thing, right? I mean, I'm able. I feel, I'm the kind of person who was, at a 7:30 a.m. meeting or breakfast every day, a lunch, meeting somebody after work, going to a function, running from 7:30 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, and flying all over the state or the country, working on cases, trying to meet with clients. I mean, I have that frenetic pace. And the one thing that I'm grateful for out of this is that the pace is slowed. And I think that's more time to spend with family. I've got 4 kids. Wow. It's more time to spend with them. We're dealing with distance learning, which is an undertaking. But no, I think that there is the silver lining of this is family staying together and spending more time together. I think that's really helpful and beneficial. And I think people are taking a little bit better care of themselves. I think that's a silver lining in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. And, you know, spending more time with family, especially when you have a lot of children, that social distancing has got to be quite interesting. Are you doing school at home like everyone else?
Yeah, we're doing distance learning. So 4 kids who are on their laptops trying to Zoom in the class. So that's a whole new world. It's one of my kids said it's like school without the fun. So that's a little challenging because they can't see their friends. But another one of my kids I think is doing better. It's less distractions. So one of the, another silver lining is this: our children are being fastly accelerated on the path of technology and what they can do over technology, right? So they will be better equipped for the new world and probably get there 2 or 3 years quicker than they would have otherwise because of what we just went through.
Right.
I think you're right about that. And this learning at home, and you got the different ages, people have been teaching at home for quite some time, but it reminds me back in the prairie days, right? When you had the one schoolroom and you had kids of all these different ages. That's got to be challenging to keep them preoccupied and focused in their learning. And some of the things we're doing is offering some extra types of new things coming down the road, chess classes. We've, things that people can do for fun and educational, depending on what age your child is. We've got Sammy the Rabbit, who's for very young kids. He teaches young kids financial literacy. So there's just, people are innovating now to teach at home. So yeah, learn an instrument at home, right?
That's right. We all should take this time to do one of those things that's been on our list to do, forever, whether it's a home chore or a personal self-development thing like learning an instrument or learning a new language. This is the time to do it.
It is. And anything? Oh, I got one more question. What are we going to do about taxes? April 15th is that ugly day that Nick always schedules everything on. And what's going to happen if we owe taxes and we don't have money to pay it? I mean, what's going to happen with all of that?
Yeah, we've already seen extensions on federal tax returns not being due in April. That's already been moved. I think there's going to be a lot of leniency on things like that. We've already had a prohibition in Florida on no foreclosures for 45 days. So people cannot be evicted. People cannot be foreclosed on their home. Banks are allowing people to not pay their mortgage payments. So I think there's a lot of forgiveness and leniency in this process until we get back to the new normal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to hear that. And I guess it will continue until we know that we've got everything under control. It's just not going to stop if we know in 30 days it needs to be extended, they're going to keep extending these things.
Mm-hmm.
You think?
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, I hope that they're judicious in the extensions and they try to get the right balance. The presumption now is not to open, right? The presumption before was not to close.
Right.
So, I hope that they go to a 2-week, extensions now and not necessarily say a month. Let's see where we are because we do need to get back up and operating.
Right. Yeah, because you get sluggish when you stay home, and I'm like you. I've kind of increased my exercising at home. But once you start, but I've worked from home. So my disciplines from working from home or traveling like you do, you develop different disciplines than for people who go to an office or a manufacturing facility or places like Home Depot. Oh, by the way, I want to commend Home Depot. They have given their employees extra vacation time when this is over for working as due diligently as they have been. Home Depot has really stepped up to the plate for their employees. They've given them all raises. So yeah, it's
fantastic company.
Yeah, it's hazardous duty pay now at this point in time. By the way, you can still play golf. Our golf club is open because they've made all the courses COVID-19 certified, COVID-19 certified, because you don't pull the flag out anymore. The ball sticks and just pick it up. You have to be one person per cart. Okay, keep your social distances so they keep the golf club open. I mean, I'm just going, are you kidding me? So I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to basically move into the new normal as quickly as we can, but I see you're just going to need to have people tested, certified, and then back in, because you can pack the planes, because remember, that's how the planes operate. You packed them up to make sure that they were full, but you can't do that if one person has COVID-19 because it'll
Yeah.
infect the whole plane. But if you had everybody who was clean, including the people that are flying it, you could run planes. I don't see a problem with that, and we could get back to normal quicker through testing, certification, and frankly retesting.
I don't want to put a fear factor on top of this, but COVID-19 is not going to be our last virus, and so we can't just test for COVID-19. I think doing the rapid test, because it tests for the different immunities in your body, I think where it's going to be at, it's going to be more important to do that first. And then if they find that there's something off, then they send you to the next level.
Right.
But, I think that there's another virus out there. We already have 20. And there's going to be another one, according to some.
Oh yeah. So, some of our physicians have been on here talk about mutating, and I'm going like, I don't want to hear that right now.
Yeah, let's
go with that one.
And here's the other thing, we do know that it is in the animals now. And so we're going to have to take a look at our livestock, and we're going to need to test them as well, because there was that feeling that in Wuhan, that's where it began, was in the meat market. But they do believe that, now that the tiger has it and the lion, and we spoke with some scientists yesterday about this, that it can transfer to your pet dog. And, who knows, maybe the felines as well. So these are things that we're going to have to be open-minded about. We're going to have to start thinking out of the box. And I also learned that air traffic controllers were getting infected.
Oh,
yeah. So, we got to be careful of not take more ownership of ourselves. If we know we're sick, take more ownership. These are things that we're going to have to learn to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I know you have to go, Senator, but thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you so much. Hope to be with you again.
Yeah,
Mr. George, we'd love to have you again. And also, we have this little handshake we do on
this is what they do in India.
Good.
We connect globally, and we send love. Right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.